We are as eager for the date as any other South African.
So you don't know precise?
I don't know. I wish I did.
Not even kancane ukuthi president phela sithi abalungiselelayo.
Unfortunately, it's not my friend. You know, I see him on TV in the same way as you do.
Today we're shedding light on elections. Everything you want to know about elections, except which party is going to win.
As of yesterday,
and yesterday was the 17th of January.
17th January 2024, the 356 political parties on the register. But it's important. 356.
If you're out on parole, you're not eligible.
Yes. You get a presidential pardon, what happens?
If you've been convicted to more than 12 months without an option of the fine, and 5 years has not lapsed since you served the sentence, you are not eligible.
Botani and welcome to the Sheds. My name is Nyaniso Jeko. It's 2024. It's been a year since we started. Our first episode aired on the 13th of January in 2023.
Yes.
So are you all right,
It's another year. I'm all right, class.
Yeah,
no, super.
Today we're shedding light on elections. Everything you want to know about elections, except which party is going to win. But everything else, what is happening, how do elections get prepared for? It's 2004. The first was in 1994. And to help us do that, we're joined by Uprasai Mamabolo.
Molo,
and welcome to the Shed.
Thank you very much.
I noticed that everyone calls you Prasai in the political space.
Yeah.
And that means bride. Looks like everyone recognizes you as the brother of the industry, politics.
Yes. No, look, of course, I've been in the game long enough, and I think that we've been able, together with the party liaison committee, to build a good spirit amongst ourselves. And the National Party Liaison Committee, for us, it's a resource because they advise us as to what policy decisions to make. We don't always agree, but it's still an important resource to the Commission. Hence, it is important to have that brotherhood, the sisterhood, and the camaraderie that you find in the PLC.
Okay. I know Nkosara has some questions. I just want to ask this one before he jumps in. IEC ran its first democratic election in 1994.
That's right.
This year, it's 2024. 30 years down the line, what have been the highlights and the lowlights?
The highlights was certainly the national common voters role. We underplay that, and I think we're making a mistake because before then, every ethnic group, population group as they were called then, had its own separate voters role. But in 1999, the country was able to compile the first common voters role. And that word common is quite important because it means we share the same political destiny. We are one people, we are one country, hence common. We may be influenced differently, we may be persuaded differently politically, but that does not detract from the central fact that we are one people existing in one country and with one economic destiny, one political destiny, and that the prospects of one really affects the prospect of the other.
Yeah.
Our future is intertwined by our nationhood.
Yeah. Brasai, and you spoke about, this is 30 years in the making, since 1994, and we used to be called the Young Democrats. I don't know if it's still in 30 years. And in comparison, looking back in the first elections, you put it nicely, 1994, and now we're going for another elections in 30 years' time in 2024.
That's right.
How many political parties that we've seen a lot of political parties registering from, I think, even last year until now. In comparison, how many do we have going to these elections in comparison to 1994?
Well, here's an important thing. Many parties participate, but very few actually make it into the Legislative Assembly. And I'll give you some figures. In 1994, we had 16 political parties on the ballot paper.
Only 16.
Wow.
Yeah, and about 12 of them made it into parliament.
Yes.
Now, fast forward to 2019, we had 46 parties on the ballot paper,
Okay.
but only 14. 46 on the ballot, but only 14 of those made it into parliament, which then suggests to us that, of course, there's fracturing in the political system. There are all these parties emerging. They have a right to exist, but it does not mean necessarily that you are having an increased plurality, an increased different perspective
Yes, voices.
in the different voices, as it were, in the National Assembly. And that's something that political scientists would have to research as to why. Greater number of parties, but constant number of parties represented in the National Assembly.
Prasai, in these numbers, are you seeing the same political parties, or they interchange, or do you see a same consistent number? For instance, the 16 in 1994 and the 14 currently. Is it more or less the same, or obviously there are new ones, but do you see a consistent number that is always there?
Yes, of course, there's a bit of both. There are consistent parties, the top three, top four.
Okay.
You have the ANC, you have the Democratic Alliance, and in the last 10 years, the EFF. And then you have the ACDP has always been there, the UDM, the Inkatha Freedom Party, and so on. But beyond that, then you have Al Jama is a newcomer, ATM is a newcomer, and so on and so on. So there's a component of parties that have been there since 1994, and they've been a consistent presence in the National Assembly. But at the same time, there are those emerging parties that are also claiming a stake in the National Assembly.
How many political parties do we have in your database registered and wanting to contest election to rule this country?
As of yesterday.
And yesterday was the 17th of January.
17th January 2024, the 356 political parties on the register. But it's important.
356?
56.
On the register. But here's the thing. It does not necessarily translate to the fact that they will be on the ballot paper.
Okay.
There are still certain requirements that must be fulfilled. Among them, it's a deposit, an election deposit that must be levied.
How much?
For the election of the National Assembly, to contest at least the PR ballot, as well as one regional ballot, 200,000.
Okay.
And then to contest the, and those are proposed, the commission still have to approve them, and 45,000 for a provincial legislature.
Okay.
So those must still be fulfilled. So our expectation is that even if there'll be more parties than there were in 2019, it won't be the whole 300 of them contesting.
Just to come in, Brasai, those are the only parties. It's exclusive of independent. Am I right?
You are right. You are certainly right. The independents don't have to register as a party. To be on the party register. The difference is that with the independents, when nomination closes, they need to have submitted their deposit. They need to have submitted their own nomination forms, as well as supporting signatures. Now, the Concord has said to us, the supporting signatures for independents must be 1,000 of 1,000 signatures of people supporting their candidate. As soon as they fulfill those requirements, then they will qualified to be on the ballot paper.
Brasai, as you're passionately known, we're going for elections, and I think what's been a struggle with yourself, and I think we spoke about this before we started with the interview. Young people, what are the issues of young people? Why we don't have them turning to go and vote? Some they do register, but on the day of the voting, what are some of the reasons that you found to say these are the reasons why young people are not voting?
It's a complex issue, certainly complex, but young people stakes in the national life of the country are different from old people. Young people are at the stage of their lives either in tertiary education, or it may be the youth outside of employment, or it may be the youth who are beginning their employment
Yes, the careers. yes.
career. So the issues that they are confronted with are starkly different from the issues that people of my age are confronted with. And therefore, their interest in the political system is different from my political
Yes,
interest.
yes, yes.
For instance, I think it's a fundamental difference. They don't, largely young persons don't own properties like older people do.
Yes.
So the urge to protect their property base is not the same as is a young person's. Maybe they don't even have huge bank balances. I'm not saying old people have, but they don't have necessarily because they are beginning their careers. So that being the case, participating in the election doesn't enjoy the same drive as it does for a person who's got property, because voting also is about protecting your
One's
asset
property.
base.
Yes.
You are protecting your asset
one
base.
would argue, Brasai, and say you see them with, that young people in South Africa, arguably, they participate in protests. We've seen with Fees Must Fall, they've championed that.
They're
But when it comes to
employed.
going
That's exactly the point.
Yes.
That they will participate to the extent that their interests are satisfied. Because if you analyze Fees Must Fall, it was about the reality of their existence at universities.
Yes.
So they were trying to protect their ability to study. That's why Fees Must Fall was such a success, because it spoke to the heart. It spoke to the reality at at a point in time. Now, if you're going to say to a young person, no, you must vote in the election because of South Africa's foreign policy, it's very detached.
So they are
from
far
his
removed from
own
that.
lived experience.
So they're not bothered by Israel, Palestine things.
Some may,
And interest
because
rates as
we
well.
should not generalize. Some may. But if we were going to talk about the transformation that is needed in NEFSAS today, that speaks to them.
Who must talk about that, Professor?
It addresses their own reality. It's student organizations together with political parties. Because if you analyze the difficulties that young people have, there's a problem of the missing middle and so on. Somebody must be taking up those issues.
Yeah.
The issues of the youth who are outside of formal employment, but also formal schooling system.
Are you saying political party manifestos don't speak directly to what affect young people?
They may, but you've also have got to have an accompanying strategy that speaks to young persons. You cannot have a political campaign that addresses Mamabolo in the same way as it addresses a student who is at TEF University struggling, not
to get placement,
to get placement, and not even sure whether they have meals and so on. So young people don't engage politically in the same way as people of my age. People of my age, we want to go into a room, debate, and so on. Young people no longer engage in that way. They engage politically, socially, on their mobile device.
Prasad, how aggressive or how persuasive is the IEC in targeting young people, bringing them to vote? I'm trying to say, your role as the IEC, how far do you go in bringing to light? Because a young person might not believe party A or party B when they come to urge them to vote, because they will say they are doing so because they have an interest. But as IEC, who's basically the referee in this thing, how much do you, what is your penetration
Yes.
to the young people?
No, we've got to penetrate young people. No doubt, we have a huge responsibility to. That's why we're going to TVET colleges. Now we're going to be doing activations in Orientation Week. We're having programs there to engage with them. But even as we do so, it's important that we don't cross the line and enter into the field, because it is very tempting, if you are not careful, that you may be propagating for the participation of young persons and end up getting into the field of play instead of remaining outside of the field of play and allow political actors to battle it out. So the IEC must always be careful to ensure that it stands outside of the field so that it can be an impartial arbiter in the election process. Because this is an important election. We are told that one that can mimic
The 1994.
1994.
Yeah.
Now, you don't want the IEC that is compromised, that is trying to explain itself because it has done this or the other thing. We've got to be seen, to be impartial, and manifestly, we've got to be impartial. The IEC should not be the problem in the game. The IEC should be seen to be a competent arbiter in the election process.
You talking about impartiality. One of the things that have been raised out there already by political parties is the issue of counting the votes. Who is responsible for counting? Who is managing the counting process, all the way to the outcome? Just take us through what is involved from after, because voters are only involved with casting their eggs, putting it in the box, and their participation ends. The next thing they are told, party A has won, party 2 is number 2, and all of that. But just take us through the whole process and the parties that are involved in that process.
No, it's a very important question. And I think I want to say upfront that those who suggest that the the results collation process is done in secret and so on, they're wrong.
Okay.
No, they're wrong. And they must not misinform South Africans, including our viewers today. When the voting station closes, counting happens immediately. So that there is no one who takes a ballot boxes and put it in their car and drive somewhere. No one. You count there in front of party agents as well as observers. And we are happy that many NGOs are willing to come on board as domestic observers because they increase that layer of transparency that we need. But beyond that, once the count is done, before everybody goes home, a result slip is completed that says party A, so many votes, party B, so many votes. And
this is at the station where they elect.
At the station level.
Okay.
And then the party agents themselves must now sign
to say they agree with what has been counted.
Yeah, to say that which is reflected against the name of my party is actually correct, and sign that off. So that result slip now is the expression of the will of the people at that voting station. In fact, the ballot papers that are cast there, they've served their purpose at that moment because the will of the people is recorded in the result slip. The result slip then is transported from the voting station to the local office of the IEC. Yes, now the result slip is completed, signed by party agent. Party agents, it's transported to the local office of the IEC. At the local office of the IEC, it is that result slip is scanned to create an image of that result slip.
Okay.
Once it's scanned, it's also captured. It's a double capture system, and by that we mean you capture it once, the screen goes black, you recapture again, then it checks whether the first count and the first capture and the second capture correspond. If they correspond, it accepts the result. But it doesn't end there.
Okay.
An auditor from the independent audit industry, in other words, a person who's not an official of the IEC, now comes, looks at the result slip as was signed in the voting station, compares it with the captured result, and if they correspond, he or she puts an auditor code. So every auditor has their unique code. So we'll know that Auditor Mamabolo was the one who audited that result. Once the audit is done, the result is transferred on our database in an encrypted format. And then it lands in our results database. Immediately it lands in the results database through an API. It's communicated to all media channels.
API?
Yes, what is API for viewers?
It's a programming interface where you get data and then you interpret it in a manner that you want to.
So it's
you
all IT. There's no human interference. It's all done.
It's all done electronically, and once it reaches our central database, immediately it goes to the media. Once it's audited, immediately goes to the media, so that there is no possibility that Mamabolo can say, no, before this result goes, let me intervene and change it and so
let
on.
the ANC win.
And let whoever party win. But here are the other important elements. Political parties who are with us in the National Results Center, they have a screen and a computer dedicated for that party. They can draw the scanned result copy and compare it with the captured copy at the results center.
The scanned result copy from the voting station.
From the voting station, the image, they can print it.
It's sent straight to them.
Yeah, they can print it, they can look at it, they can print the captured one and compare and say, my party agent signed so much at this voting station. Why is it that in the system is something else? So all those things, and I can tell you with great certainty that our result collation process is one of the most transparent amongst many democracies in the world.
And where do we rank in terms of the world that you're speaking of?
Well, there's a study that was done by the Electoral Integrity Project run from the US. In fact, they said we are number 2 in the world.
Wow.
And the reason we are number 2 in the world is because we've not had a change of government. But a change of government is not the responsibility of the IEC. The change of government must come about as a result of an outcome of an election, if that's how people are going to be voting. But the IEC can't instigate for that. It is not our responsibility. Hence, I'm saying the IEC must stay outside of the field of play and allow political players to play the game.
You mentioned auditing results.
Yes.
Is this an individually appointed auditor, or is it an auditor who works for an appointed company? Where I'm getting is the process of appointing the auditor. It's one of the issues that are out there. The process of appointing the auditing company. How does that go as well? So that IEC has independent auditors.
Indeed. We're not appointing individuals. It's a tender process. And because of the numbers that are involved, we have a situation where several audit firms come together and put up bids, and then the bid that wins is appointed, and we advertise who the winning bidder is because we've got to do so in terms of the National Treasury regulations.
Are you able to indicate which auditing firms you've worked with between 1994 and now?
We've worked with many different firms before. What comes to mind, PwC. We've worked with. Now I forgot this, Ernst & Young in the past, and so on. All the big auditing firms we've worked with before. And remember, why we're using independent auditors is because their professional integrity is on the line. you can't be an auditor that says that sees that the books are cooked, but say the books are not cooked, because that it goes to the very heart of the integrity of the audit profession. So, which is why we use established audit firms for this purpose.
Because
It's not Mamabolo and Mamabolo,
Yes.
trying to.
because this year, Prasai, we are going to be issued with 3 different ballot papers because there are independent candidates. You mentioned earlier, through the Constitutional Court ruling, are now allowed to contest elections. Just take the voters through that. What can they expect? How are you going to vote? It sounds and look complicated. Make it easy for us.
Yeah, let's try to make it easy. There will be 3 ballot papers on this occasion. The first 2 ballot papers relate to the elections of the National Assembly. And then the third ballot paper relates to the election of the provincial legislature. Now, if we go to the 2 ballots for the National Assembly, the first one is to elect representatives to Parliament from the province in which you live.
Okay.
And I think that's important. Each province will get a set of MPs who represent voters in that province.
Okay.
And then the second ballot for the National Assembly, it's a pure PR election. It's a PR ballot, and only political parties may be on that PR ballot. And the reason we have a dedicated PR ballot is because the Constitution demands that the election outcome must, in general, be proportional. In other words, must reflect the strength of each party that participated in the election. Now, going to the third ballot, which is the provincial ballot, that will have both independent candidates as well as political parties. It's a much simpler one. It's not a 2-tier system, whereas the National Assembly will be 2-tier because it will have the provincial component as well as the national component in the composition of the National Assembly.
I'm picturing a situation where an independent candidate wins nationally. He gets how many? 20 million votes. And he's one person. And there are seats most in Parliament. So does he get all the seats? Because that is also a debate.
Yes.
What happens? Kosana here comes and the country wants him to be president of this country, wins. How
We start with the definition of an independent. An independent, by definition, is one person.
One person.
Okay.
If you want to be more than one person, then you form a party.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, if you are an independent candidate, you are so popular, you get 20 million votes.
Yes.
We will do a calculation to give you the seat, and the rest of the ballots that you have accrued are forfeited, because as an independent, you can only
just one
occupy
person. Yeah.
one seat.
He can bring umzala wakhe okanye ubongana athi bongisiza.
No, it's not. He must do that before and form a party if that's what he wants to do.
But as he gets 20 million votes, he will only be allocated one seat.
Because we are
What happens to the
independent.
rest of the votes? Do they go to other parties? Bashare?
Yes, I've heard that that before. No, it doesn't go to any party. It is just discarded from calculation.
You just get one and that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. One last
And by the way,
Yeah.
the Constitutional Court looked at this issue
Yes.
in the one movement case, and they found nothing wrong with that. Because, as I say, if you are an independent, you are one person, you can only occupy one seat.
What qualifies you to be voted for, and what disqualifies you from being voted for? I'm Yanuso Jegu. I want to be a member of parliament, either as an independent or as a member of a political party. What is it that will prevent me from fulfilling my interest, and what is it that will enable me to?
2 things. Firstly, the Electoral Act says that you must be registered, you must be a registered voter.
Okay.
And for you to be a registered voter, you must be a South African citizen.
Okay.
So that's where and that's the requirements for candidature.
Okay.
The Constitution, on the other hand, says in Section 47, if you've been convicted to more than 12 months without an option of the fine, and 5 years has not lapsed since you served the sentence, you are not eligible.
If you're out on parole, you're not eligible.
Yes. Or you get a presidential pardon, what happens?
Well, let's say that I want to limit it to the constitutional provisions. You've served the term. The term, you must have 5 years must elapse before you become eligible to hold office either in the National Assembly or in the provincial legislature. Now, we are not yet at the candidate nomination stage, and no case has arisen. No case is before the commission to say whether somebody flouts the constitutional provisions or not. But what we can clearly articulate for the listeners is, if you are sentenced to more than 12 months without an option of the fine, you can't stay. And if you've served the term, 5 years must lapse before you are eligible
To stand.
to stand.
Is it clear, Mtikazi?
No, it's clear.
Do you want to ask it direct? Mtikazi?
Brasai, my last part in short is that already people are anxious. I mean, when you started the conversation, you said people are, especially young people, are saying 2024, it's their 1994. And do we know by when will we have elections? Has the president maybe whispered something to you? The readiness from IEC?
No, the IEC will be ready at any time because the Concord told us that you can't postpone an election beyond what, beyond what is constitutionally permissible. So we will be ready at any time to do the elections. The commission, I'm aware, has been meeting with the president to try to finalize its readiness with him and to indicate its readiness. And we hope that in the not too distant future, those consultations will be concluded and the president will then be in a position to announce the date. We are as eager for the date as any other South African.
So you don't know, Brasai?
I don't know. I wish I did.
Not even kancane ukuthi president phela sithi abalungiselelayo.
Unfortunately, it's not my friend. You know, I see him on TV in the same way as you do.
No, you are running an important institution. Can say ngalo kungameli. Funeka sibe ready. So kawasicelele. Is it May? Is it July? Is it August?
No, I frankly don't know, but I can say that the IEC is working to be ready at the earliest possible date. And we know that the earliest possible date, or rather the election can happen between May and the 14th of August, thereabout.
Does season affect you in any how? Would you prefer an election, a winter election in June
summer,
or a windy election in August? Your preference, if you're to shop for an election date, what would be your preference based on weather or a variety of other things?
No, I think those are factors that the president, in exercising his discretion, has to take into account. On our side, we've got to be ready as defined in the Constitution. We can't say, no, hey, winter is not comfortable for us. The Constitution demands that an election be held by a date, and the IEC works on that basis. So if we have to do an election wearing scarves and beanies and so on,
or
we'll
raincoat.
do it. Or raincoat, we'll do it. We have to do it because the Constitution says so.
Oh, okay. Interesting, Mtikazi.
Yeah.
And fascinating. You do vote, Brasai.
Yes.
And I want to put in a corner.
Yes.
Have you voted for one party since 1995 until now, or you've varied your votes?
I actually forgot who I voted for the last 6 elections. But I think it's very different parties at different times.
Brasai, if you were to have a message urging South Africans to vote, how would you convince a person who says, you know what, this thing of voting does not work for me? Talk to them, Brasai.
Dear viewers, this is your democracy. Make it work. South Africa's future rests in your hands. the type of development you like to see, it's embedded in the decision that you make, whether to vote and who to vote for. As regards the IEC, we don't get involved as to who you vote for. Whoever you ultimately decide to vote, it's your choice. All we will do is count your vote, count it correctly, and ensure that the people that go to parliament are people that carry your mandate as a voter.
Thank you, Pastor. One last thing, Mhlekazi. How protected are the votes of political parties who don't have party agents? In other words, the importance of party agents is stressed so much that if you're a political party whose footprint does not cover the 23,000 VTs, how can you be secure that in that voting station, the IEC will protect my votes? There are things that if you're not there, parties while there take your votes and they share them among themselves.
No, remember, our staff sign an oath to ensure that they act independently and protect the interest of everybody. It's our primary responsibility to ensure that every party is treated fairly. But we also have observers. I accept that observers won't be at all voting stations, but we are very pleased that the NGOs are coming up. New initiatives have been done to ensure that there's a broad group of entities in society that are going to be observing these elections so that they can stretch the transparency envelope that we need to ensure that these elections are free of any malfeasance.
Thank you, Prasai. Clara is going in.
No, thanks, Prasai.
Good luck with the election, Prasai. I'm sure you are that man who will be insulted the most. If my party does not win, I will insult you.
That's fine.
If I do not win, I will throw it your way. But thank you very much, Prasai. You've been watching the Sheds. We've been shedding light on elections, talking to the CEO of the Independent Electoral Commission of South Africa, Prasai Mamabolo. Uzvele ngokwakho. Till we meet again, continue watching the Sheds. Bye-bye.